Every last one of us is at this point trying to find any edge that we can in our fantasy matchups. And the truth is, the simplest thing on a weekly basis is finding a defense that could give you 20 points versus a defense on the other end that only gives you 5 points. That is the importance of fantasy football defense, especially at this point in the season. So we're going through Week 12's top 12 defense rankings, and I'm one of the only fantasy YouTubers who covers defense multiple times a week. So make sure to go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. Dropping down to our first tier, the Seahawks defense feels like the easiest pick potentially all year. First of all, the Seahawks defense is one of the few truly elite defenses that I often say you don't want to feel married to a fantasy football defense most of the time. They are one of the few this year that I'm actually well on board with being married to this year. The Seahawks defense, I played them last week against the Rams, and it didn't kill me, but it wasn't great. But I did that because I did not want to drop them and lose them this week when they play the Titans. They're going to Tennessee to play the freaking Titans, a team that can't score points. They have one of the lowest average point totals of any team this year. They also turn the ball over too. This is at any angle, this is going to be a fantastic play. Maybe they're not the defense number one on the week, but there's just simply no way this goes bad. With 32 sacks through 10 games, 9 interceptions through 10 games, 2 defensive touchdowns, and 2 special teams touchdowns, find me a fault in playing the Seahawks defense against the Titans offense. This is going to go great. The Packers defense is at number 2 versus the Minnesota Vikings this week. Now, here's the problem ultimately with the Packers, man, is that every single week with the Packers, they end up underperforming most weeks that they're in my top 12 rankings. And I've noticed that every single time, right? The Green Bay Packers are, in the NFL terms, a very good defense, but in fantasy terms, not that many dominant games. Here's why this week I feel like it works even better than it did against the Giants. So Jameis Winston, he comes in and puts 20 points up on the Green Bay Packers. Well, it was also in New York, so that's a definite factor there. And Jameis Winston only threw 1 interception. J.J. McCarthy, when you look at him, I mean, this guy has been so horrifically terrible that nobody comments about me trashing J.J. anymore because I've been doing it all year because everyone knows that he's just not good at football. J.J. McCarthy is averaging basically 2 picks per game. I mean, he's had 9 turnovers in the last 4 games. This guy's terrible. And everything that he's doing is sailing over his receivers' heads. You could have Shaquille O'Neal out there and he wouldn't be able to catch the balls that he's throwing people. It's so disgusting, and I just don't see a world where Minnesota puts up 17 points on the Packers. So even if the Packers don't get tons of sacks on this team or tons of turnovers, there's a lot of angles here that it just should work. Angles from the turnover perspective, angles from the sack perspective, and just an offense that can't put up many points. I've got to have the Packers inside the top 3. And the Ravens defense is at number 3. Now, if you watched last week's early top 12 defense rankings for this week, you'll notice here that I did make that switch. I actually had the Ravens defense at number 2, and I dropped them to 3. But they're playing the Jets offense, and that should be also a fantastic matchup, worthy of being in tier 1. And here's the reality with the Ravens defense is, from a fantasy perspective, they've been a little bit hot and cold lately as well. Now, in some games recently, like against the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football, they had a big game, 15 points, and compare that to the Packers, and that's a lot more than they've really done the last several weeks. And this is a great matchup here. So in my opinion, you can rank these two however you really want to, because if you look at the Ravens defense over the last several weeks, they've had an interception in the last 4 games, at least one. They're getting sacks on a per game basis. They are just doing well at holding their teams to not many points. So in my opinion, rank these two how you want to. I ended up putting the Packers over them because I think the Vikings are just on a really, really fast downslope, whereas the Jets, maybe they get a kick from having Tyrod Taylor this week. Probably not, which is why the Ravens are definitely in the top 3. Dropping down to our next tier, I've got the Browns defense at number 4 at the Las Vegas Raiders. I just want to take a minute to acknowledge something really quick. The Browns defense, they are the number 7 defense in fantasy football, and this team has 2 wins. Think about how impressive that is for a defense to be this dominant with that few wins. Like, most of the time, it's the opposite. Most of the best defenses in the league, they're winning games. At least better than 2 games through week 11. Like, this is insanity what the Browns defense is able to do. And I get it, Myles Garrett is a great player, Hall of Fame talent, but it's not only him. Now, maybe a lot of it is because of him, ripple effect, but they've got 9 interceptions through 10 weeks, 8 forced fumbles through 10 weeks. This is a team that has done extraordinarily well in the secondary. And again, maybe it's coverage, and maybe it is just because Myles Garrett is rushing every throw. The bottom line is against the Raiders, there's no way this isn't a good play either. Now, the only reason they're down here, I'm mitigating risk a little bit because a couple weeks ago against the Jets should have been a dominant performance, wasn't that dominant. So I'm mitigating risk here a little bit by putting them at 4, but they are awesome this week in fantasy because they're playing the Raiders. The Lions defense is at number 5, and they're taking on the Giants. Now, here's something you may not know. The Detroit Lions defense has been very good. And this is crazy because they have lost a ton of pieces. Now, they're starting to get a little healthier, but the Detroit Lions, man, they're the defense number 12 in fantasy this year. Like, they're actually becoming the strength of that team. 31 sacks through 10 games, 8 interceptions, 9 forced fumbles, a safety, and a special teams touchdown. Like, the Detroit Lions defense with that new defensive coordinator, they're picking up where they left off. Now, the past 2 games from a fantasy perspective, not been great, but holding the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles, both to the amount of points that they held them to, very impressive stuff. So against the Giants this week, I get it. Jackson Dart coming back may provide a boost for them. I don't see it to be enough against a really good defense, and it's also an offense that has tons of turnover issues. So to me, Lions are top 5 this week. And I would be willing to bet anything that the Lions are about 90% of people's waiver wires. This is the perfect time to utilize our automatic waiver tool to go grab the Lions defense. Every week, there's a mad dash to the waiver wire. You get up at 3 in the morning after initial waiver priority claims run through to try to grab the rest of the best free agents. What our process has done is completely automated that so you can sleep through the night and beat those losers to the 3 a.m. waiver wire. That's right. You can do this completely automated and wake up to a text from your buddy saying, "How did you beat me on the waiver?" Well, it's because you're using our tool on fsroundup.com. You can also get access to my weekly top 250 rankings, the comparison feature on our site, and the league sync-up feature on our site as well. And if you want the full personalized advice from me, you could get a team breakdown where we'll discuss trade ideas, waiver acquisitions, anything to help your team make it better and make a championship happen this year. You can also do a team breakdown from me as well. Now, dropping down to our next tier, I've got the Texans defense at number 6, and they're taking on the Bills on Thursday night, and I've actually got the Bills defense at number 7. Now, they're playing in Houston this week. So here's a couple moving parts to this one I think people need to remember. So first of all, the Texans defense is one of the 3 that is dominant. The Seahawks defense, the Texans defense, and the Broncos defense, which is on a bye. Those are our elite defenses that I'm okay feeling married to this year. So even against the Bills and Josh Allen, who just had 6 touchdowns by himself, yes, I understand. Josh Allen is Superman, but we've also seen plenty of games this year where Josh Allen and the Bills haven't done as well. And by the way, Josh Allen starting to turn the ball over more. But here's the ultimate reason why I like the Texans this week. So number 1, Houston is one of the toughest places to play in the NFL. You can look at their last several home games. They've done very well when they're at home. Number 2 is because this secondary is ball hawking, and that's what Josh Allen's doing right now. He's throwing interceptions again. And Houston is also on the crux of missing the playoffs. They want to win this game at home on Thursday night. And I've got the Bills defense in here as well, again, because I ultimately think this could be a defensive struggle. So number 1, CJ Stroud actually looks to be missing this game again, which you can look at it as good or bad. I mean, Davis Mills, not done bad for what he's been like for being a backup quarterback. Davis Mills has played okay football. Now, the other problem with the offense is that they give up sack after sack after pressure after sack. So the Bills defense, yes, they haven't been great as far as getting after the quarterback every week, but they can do that with Joey Bosa, with a bunch of those guys they've got up front. They can cause pressure, and they can point out weaknesses, which is exactly what the offense has with the Houston Texans. They can also get interceptions and fumble recoveries too. The Houston offense, they're just really sloppy. They don't always have the most explosive offense, and they've got a bad offensive line. So yeah, I do think this is a week where the Bills are a top 10 defense. And again, I love the Texans this week as well, even though they're playing against Superman Josh Allen. Eagles defense is at number 8. They're going to Dallas to take on the Cowboys, and the Eagles defense is actually phenomenal. Like, this defense, man, they made so many moves. And I think I was texting a buddy the other day. One of the most underrated moves of the trade deadline was them trading Miami for Jalen Phillips as a pass rusher. It's completely changed things. So they have 21 sacks through 10 games. That's actually much better than it used to be. They were not averaging many sacks per game. Now they're getting after everybody. So from a defensive perspective in fantasy, they're the number 10 defense. That's because of this move that they've made. They've gotten so much better. And one of the things we've seen with Dallas, and I know they're coming off a big performance last night, but they've had a lot of games where they haven't been good offensively. So I do think that there's definitely an angle here that the Philadelphia Eagles defense actually does really well against the Cowboys, gets Dak to turn the ball over, sacks them a couple times. I think that's all on the table, and I'll take the Eagles at 8. The Bears defense is at number 9, and they're taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. The Bears defense, man, they have done such good stuff for fantasy football, and it's crazy. It's all tied to one number. 21 sacks through 10 games, not the best number, obviously. And that's been relatively stable throughout the year, so it's not like it's getting that much better like it is with the Eagles. But they have 15 interceptions through 10 games. Like, if you want to just tell me that, oh, it's because they played J.J. McCarthy, that's not the thing. Like, they have done it everywhere they've played. Dallas, they picked him off 3 times. The Raiders, they picked him off 3 times. The Saints, they picked him off 3 times. They picked off Joe Flacco with the Bengals 2 times. They're getting it against everybody. Their secondary is confusing all types of offenses here. So against the Steelers, who very well might not have Rodgers, I do think that this is going to be a game where the Bears could capitalize on a lower scoring offense with a bad offensive line and make Mason Rudolph throw some interceptions. If it is Mason Rudolph, which as of now, I am projecting it will be. Dropping down to our last tier. The Raiders defense versus the Cleveland Browns has to be inside my top 12. And this sounds disgusting, but the first couple of tiers, those were a mixture of good defenses and good matchups. This obviously is going to be a tier where matchup is going to play into effect for some of it, because the Raiders defense has no business usually being inside my top 12. And I've done it a couple times this year, and for the most part, it has burned me. But this is an offense, man, that I cannot get past. I mean, the Browns, their whole reason for being a 2-win team is because that's how bad their offense is. And I really don't care if it's Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel this week. My bet is that it's going to be Shedeur Sanders. So actually, I'm going to give Shedeur a little credit here, because I actually saw some throws down the field that were better than Dylan Gabriel's. If it was Gabriel, the Raiders would probably be in the tier above them. So this feels like a game where Max Crosby could get a couple sacks, really get after this quarterback here with Shedeur Sanders. And Shedeur holds the ball forever too. So he will take sacks in this game, leading to a top 10 to 12 finish for the Raiders. The Vikings defense is at 11, and they're going to Green Bay to take on the Packers. The Vikings defense is what's keeping them in these close games. Bottom line, end of story. Like, their offense has been atrocious, but their defense is keeping them in these games. 26 sacks through 10 games, 10 forced fumbles through 10 games, 3 picks, not a great number, but they are still a defense that holds teams a few points, and they do get turnovers off of you and sacks. This is a week where they're playing the Packers. This is a big game for the Packers. Obviously, they're going to be fighting for their playoff lives against a divisional opponent, and the Vikings probably don't have much of a chance to be in the playoffs, but it is a defense that I ultimately trust. With Jordan Love and his lack of consistency lately, the Packers' offensive line not looking good, I do trust the Vikings to hold them to low points and get some sacks on Jordan Love to a point where they'll be a top 12 play this week. And the Patriots defense, they sneak into the top 12, and they're going to Cincinnati. So if Jamar was there, this would be a game where I'm like, I don't trust it. Like, I didn't have the Steelers in here last week because I believe that Joe Flacco can put up points because he's done it basically every game. But a couple of things have developed. So obviously Jamar Chase gets suspended for 1 game for spitting on Jalen Ramsey when he claims he didn't. That's another story though, right? But here's the other thing. Joe Flacco is starting to turn the ball over too. And that was the problem with Joe Flacco that I originally had, but I overlooked it for a while because he was putting up a lot of points. Well, here's a team that is clearly going down the drain. Their playoff hopes are basically eliminated, and it is an offense that I don't trust without Jamar Chase to give us many explosive plays. That's a massive piece of their offense being taken out. The way the Patriots are playing, they look good defensively. They're getting enough done to be fantasy relevant on a weekly basis. Give me them at number 12. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below. And if you want to see the full top 30 running back rankings rest of season, click on this video right here.